Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
This is part 2 of our discussion on figuring out your priorities and your time. So if you haven't listened to the first episode, we suggest listening to it first and coming back to this one. Let's jump into talking more about filtering your priorities and how you spend your time. Then I do something even crazier. Should we talk about block scheduling?
Yeah, if you want.
Let's talk about block scheduling. And what block scheduling is, if you've never heard of it before, it is basically saying on these days, I'm going to work on these type of things. And so it's not set in concrete because this isn't, but it helps you figure out what are the things I want to focus on today. Here's what it helps. It helps you with that multitasking we were talking about earlier, to not be jumping of, I know I need to do this. I need to do finances today. I need to write some social media content. I need to go to the grocery. I need to do all those things all wrapped into one. Some days look like that, but if you can find a way to do some kind of block scheduling, this works great if you are your own business owner, if you work for another company. Sometimes you don't have full control of your, when you get to do certain things. Yeah, that's true. But I remember doing this.
I mean, heck, it works if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad or whatever.
Does. Yes.
I think whatever.
Yes, when I've been in the seasons where it's been more of me just at home with the kids and stuff like that, and doing things, and especially when they were newborns and under a year and that kind of thing, doing this kind of stuff really helped me just feel like my day had a bit of structure.
Yeah.
Rest days, things
you're huge on this.
Yeah, rest days, those kinds of things. Those to me, that doesn't need to have structure. I've tried, and that's not restful. But for instance, so for me, I know my Mondays are kind of pulling myself back into the work week. And so for me, that means I take care of our finances on Mondays. It's kind of admin stuff. We get our orders out. It's any of those type of things that I know Monday is a bit of a catch-all day.
Yeah, it's more of an admin day.
Exactly, it is. And Pat knows that too. And some of those things takes up a lot of time. Yeah. And so on some of those days, Pat knows that's what I'm working on. And that stuff is so important for our business, even though I don't always love all of it. And so then you'll be, at least in COVID times, you've been on par with the kids that day.
Yeah, I will kind of take some of the other... I will take, the weight of other things, because I know the things that you're doing on Monday aren't necessarily your favorite things to do. So they drain you. It's important, but they drain you. And so if I can take the load off of other things, that's just how we work. It just is helpful. It's just super helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just one example of what would be a block day. Those are the type of things. And then if something else comes up that I know doesn't need to be done that day and I'm not on a deadline, I move it to a day we have one day where I might work on, we actually have a day that we call our meeting day, that we do try to schedule all of our meetings in one day, because there's nothing, in my opinion, that breaks up my day more and my concentration on something than having a meeting right in the middle of the day.
That's very true.
And so we do actually try to schedule all of our meetings that we have on one day. It's not science. It doesn't always happen that way because of other people's schedules. But what it does do is it creates that time for us to just know, this is meeting day. I'm going to be taking lots of notes. I might be really drained at the end of the day, but then I have the rest of the week to work on these things and moving these things forward and not sitting in meetings. Yeah. You feel that way about meetings.
Yeah, I think it's just helpful to know these are the things that you're working on that day. And, it's okay if something flows over a little bit longer and then it has to move to another day. But again, you can fit things here and there based on what's going on and the things that you've looked at earlier in the week. And so,
Exactly. And for when, I was trying to think of different stages of life, and we are speaking as people who have our own business and stuff. And
True.
So I was trying to think through, if you are somebody who works for a company, an easy thing that I used to do, I used to write a lot of proposals and everything. And then I would also write, do public relations and stuff to try to get newspapers and other news channels to pick up stuff that we were doing. And so I couldn't go back and forth between writing proposals and writing a press release. It was too different, and it was different styles of writing and things like that. So I would write the press releases on one day and then do the proposal on the other. Now a project could be coming up and suddenly there's a proposal that's needed. And so, yes, I would maybe have to switch that. But for me, it helped me know, or it could be your morning is this, your afternoon is this. It just helps you really like stay in kind of that zone of whatever it may be you're working on. And you have found that too with like
I've
designing or
I've found that super helpful. I think thinking back though too, for me, I've always been in a place where everything's project driven. So if I've got 5 projects on my, list, then I've got to sort out deadlines and all that kind of stuff, and how am I going to meet those things within the projects. And depending on the style of projects, certain things take a little bit longer than others and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of typically how I've worked a little bit more. But I think seeing how you've kind of taken this block schedule idea has really kind of opened my eyes as far as how I can even think about, when I am doing certain creative things and projects and creating stuff, that there's certain ways that I can say, okay, from, 9 to 10 tomorrow morning, I'm going to be sketching. And that's the time allotted that I'm going to give it, rather than going, I'm in the sketch phase and, we'll see how it goes and all that kind of stuff. I think it's setting limitations, but also allowing creativity within those limitations. At least for me, it's been super helpful.
Yeah, and I think, too, again, we're speaking a lot of work and business and everything like that, but there was, a time frame where the majority of my time, whether it was a maternity leave or whatever it may have been, was with our kids. And with that, I still did do some kind of block scheduling because it helped me, for any new moms out there, and moms, you may know those seasons where you feel like each day just flows into the next and you're not exactly sure what day it is. I mean, COVID has made us all feel that way. But, so for me, it would be like I knew on this day we were going to go on a walk and go to the playground or something like that. Or this day we had a music class maybe or something. Or it may be I decided that I was going to focus on like cleaning the house and getting things organized around the house on that day. I've gone through different seasons of doing like meal prep and things like that where that's been an in and out thing in our lives. I can never quite figure out if it is something that needs to be in our lives or not. But so then I've had a certain day then that I have said, okay, on Tuesdays is the day that I'm going to do the meal prep. And so that means I need to get the groceries on Monday or something like that. And so those kind of things are still possible for you to figure out. And it just helps you a little bit think like, okay, like, so then, if you do have some, because you still, that is the hardest job ever, is being a mom who stays at home, or a mom in a season that you are at home with your kids and that kind of thing. Or dad, exactly. Yes, sorry, I should have said that for sure. Mom or dad doing that, that you still have stuff you have to get done. I think there's a perception that, you don't have that much that you are trying to figure out how to put together, or the pieces to put together. And that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
And so even doing those things can really be super helpful, and making you feel like, oh yeah, okay, I'm able to get some of those things done. You'll never get 100% of it done.
No,
but
not at all.
Does help with that a little bit. So speaking of that, so that's block scheduling. And the way I've determined my block scheduling is figuring out what times I work best.
Yeah.
Now, like I mentioned, yes, finances and admin stuff takes some mental capacity, but there's also not a lot of creativity in it. For me personally, I'm saying that from someone who is literally just punching in the numbers into QuickBooks and stuff like that. For somebody else to do the rest, that does take creativity. I don't understand how people do all the other financial things. But for me, my creativity is more like writing, coming up with ideas, that kind of stuff. Mondays aren't that day. Mondays for me aren't on that day. Yeah. I've just tried and it doesn't work.
Yep.
So we have very different, well, not very different, but you have discovered a time that you work best that I am not a huge fan of. And that is the early mornings.
Yes. It is one of my favorite times to work. Yeah, I've always been a morning person though. I mean, that started way back in high school.
I am not.
that started way back in high school when I worked for my dad on a golf course, and I would be up super early to go to work. And so I've, for some odd reason, because of that, I think it's just been ingrained in me. Yeah, you can get stuff done early in the morning. I love the fact that I get up early in the morning before everybody else is up. I get a few things done. I read a couple, for me, I read the Bible in the morning and do some devotion stuff in the morning as well. But then I have like this space of quiet that I can create and do things. And I just find it very rewarding and peaceful. And I feel like energized when I'm during that time of day. But I also feel like sometimes for me, I've found the late evenings have been really good as well. So
which doesn't enable you to get up early in the morning.
I would say probably mid-afternoon is, that's hard sledging for me. Like trying to get anything done in the afternoon is really hard because I feel like I'm in this weird space of wanting to clock off and just hang out with the kids versus I should probably push on and have a little bit more time on that project or this or whatever. So, but yeah, so I love doing things in the morning. I'm super energized in the morning. I just don't understand it. But knowing that's when I try to base a huge chunk of my creativity time and do that in the mornings.
It means you go to bed a bit earlier too.
Sometimes, depending on like I just said, sometimes I could be working on something in the evening and there's just something that happens and I get a second wind or whatever and I'm super pumped about what I'm doing and I'll just keep going and you think I'm crazy, but then I will still wake up.
I don't understand
super early in the morning.
My body
and
doesn't
keep
function
moving.
That way.
Somehow I will catch up and sleep somewhere, but I don't know where that happens.
Never catch up on sleep. That's not a true thing.
I don't know where that happens, but it happens.
And for me, it's not early in the morning. I have tried. Not very successful. You can ask Pat when he's doing that early morning creative.
How many times did you ask me to wake you up this morning? That's every morning.
Where am I during your early morning creating?
You are sleeping in bed.
Exactly. So, and I will set an alarm.
Because we live in a small flat in London, our office is in our bedroom, so I'm sure that's not helpful, and I'm sorry that I am up early in the morning.
I'm so used to it, I can sleep through it. It doesn't even bother me anymore. I'm not even fazed by it. And he will be listening to something too on his headphones, and he'll laugh. Not fazed by it, I can still sleep. And for me, I know I have to have a crazy amount of sleep in order to function, and so I do pay attention to that. But then also for me, my sweet spot of time is about 9:30 till noon or so, where I feel super creative during that time. Like Pat was just talking about his different times. I can focus really well at that time. I've had a cup of tea, all those kinds of things, and it just is my zone. So when I talk about that block scheduling, I do also think about that. And on those certain days, do I have that chunk of time to do something? And if so, I better put some creative stuff into that time.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't always work out that way,
yeah.
But my hope is always to know what should I be doing during that time, because I don't want to waste that precious time. Because once the afternoon hits, just very much like Pat said, and you could be the opposite. You could be high function, high creative in the afternoons.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? So this does mean, once you figure that out, just pay attention to it. I think I just started paying attention to, the type of things or trying things at different times of day. Like I said, I attempted the early morning thing.
You did?
What?
When did that happen?
Kind of attempted it.
When?
I mean, early morning for me is,
8:39?
No, I get up before that. Only because we have to because of our children.
I'm sorry. 7:30?
But with that, try some different times of day and just test some things out. Pay attention to how you feel, what's your energy level. Are you feeling creative at that time? Now, it doesn't mean that every day at 9:30 to 12 that I feel super creative. There are days I definitely sit down and I've got nothing. But if I kind of pay attention, that tends to be my more creative time.
Yeah.
This does mean in different seasons. When we first moved to London, Pat was working out of the house the majority of the time. And we did have, our daughter was at home with me. She wasn't in school yet or any kind of nursery or preschool or anything. And so knowing that my morning time was the creative time, once I got the other two off to school and we came home, she knew that like this was the one, like the time during the day that she got to watch some shows. And I know some people may be like, oh, no, I don't do technology and that kind of thing. And that's fine. You got to do what is good for you.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's no,
Whatever's best.
and that kind of thing. But for me, that was the only time I could actually get stuff done. And so I always, she knew she had like two shows she watched. So I had an hour of time that I could get stuff done in the morning. So I had to really be selective of what were my priorities and that kind of thing. What could I do? And so I did that hour of time. And then I knew I would have another chunk of time during her nap time in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That was always slightly hazy as you have kids and
You just never know.
You never know how long the nap might be. But I knew that. So I knew then with that, my afternoons weren't great for creativity. So if I could squeeze in whatever creativity I could get into that hour time while she was watching something. And I was really precious with that time too, knowing that we would tend not to schedule things during that time. After it, sure. But I just kind of made that like a thing. That's what worked for me. Of like just paying attention to that time and everything. And then that structured our days.
Yep. If there's ways that I mean, if you've got kids at home, do what you got to do.
Yes. I mean,
some ways,
and don't feel
bad about it.
Yeah. And don't let other people I did feel really guilty. I remember having a friend that said, oh, I would never let my children watch TV before a certain time of day. I think it was like 1 or something. And I thought, I don't understand the reasoning on that. But okay, like, good for you.
Yeah,
like, I remember feeling bad.
What works for your family works for your family.
Exactly. I remember feeling really bad and guilty about myself for a while. And then I thought, you know what? That's what works for them. This is what's working for us.
Yep.
Again, there's no judgment in it.
Yeah.
It's just you figure out what works for you. And there were days, I will be honest, completely that, like, I'm not hiding it, that I put her in the front of the TV for longer than that. Now, she's our one child actually that doesn't sit in front of the TV for very long, so it never worked to my advantage. It actually caused more trouble because she's like, "Can I change the show? Can I do this?"
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. About that.
She was horrible. She'd get 10 minutes into something, so it actually turned out to be more disruptive for me than it was helpful for me. And so I learned that pretty quickly too, that actually this is not helpful for her. I learned if you gave her certain things, again, you have to figure out your child, and each child is different. If I could safely put her in the bathtub, which I could, she was old enough at that point, she would be in the bathtub for an hour and a half playing. She'd be safe and she'd be having a blast. She still is that way. She did it again today.
She still does it today.
She still does. She loves the bathtub. She loves playing and all that. And so once I figured that out, I realized, oh, forget the TV, the bathtub. We're just going to have bath time every single day.
So because of that, then like when there are times where you don't feel as creative or you're as focused or whatever like that, like what do you do then? Do you just stop? Like,
look at what is on your priority list and figure out those things that are possibly the less creative things that you can get done then.
Yeah.
I had a moment like that today where I had structured, and in just a second we'll talk about like how you can structure your day and stuff, and that's why we're talking about your most creative time. But I was set to do some creative things. I had scheduled in the afternoon, so I should have known ahead of time. But I had no other choice because of other things we had going on and stuff like that. And so I tried to get into a bit of a writing process with some things and realized I'm not feeling it right now. I know this needs to be done, but I'm going to let it sit. And I'm going to do some things that are more, not completely admin, but that kind of stuff of some research I needed to do and that kind of thing. So there's usually something else you can also do.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to push through.
True.
But
I like to call mowing the grass. Like those are things that just call mowing the grass. That you can kind of do. It's a little bit mindless tasks. It's things that are not like the most exciting things, but they still have to get done. And yeah.
For me, I often will stay away from the things that seem large and big. If it seems overwhelming to me, I don't know where to start. And that is, again, we're figuring out. Walk yourself through it. Figure it out. Go through the steps. There's got to be one first step you have to do to get to the next, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that helps. Again, just pay attention to what you feel and what is hard and what you might need help with or ask, all of that stuff. And for me, again, it has been coming up with, again, this is what works for me. And this is floating. Again, I love how you said that earlier.
Yeah,
It's all
it always
floating.
floats.
So I have a piece of paper. Pat does not do this. So this, again, we'll share our different ways that we do this. But for me, I write down, like, from the time I get up, which I'm always very wishful in the time that I get up, because I believe on my piece of paper it says 6.
I'm sorry. Does your piece of paper actually say 6?
It does. I'm looking at it right here.
That doesn't make any sense.
says
6
6.
p.m., right? 6
However, I
p.m.
have nothing written in that time. So 6 and 7 have nothing written in them. I know what I would like to do at those times, but I mean,
Because you do it. Because you're in bed.
so again, be realistic in your time and what you're saying is my point with that. And so I write down starting at 6, which I'm still in bed, but starting the time you wake up until you hope to go to bed. I write down general of what I know are knowns for that day. So for me, if I can be realistic in knowing what I can actually do, if I know that I am doing home learning stuff from 8 till noon, and then we have to make lunch for 3 kids, and then I will be able to work in the afternoon, but we may not be done with lunch until 1. And we generally try to be done with work at 5 in our family. That means that I only have those from 1 to 5 to do what I need to get done.
Yeah.
Of course, and even when the kids were in school and before all of this, I still kind of did this because if we had a meeting, for instance, we have different meetings throughout the week, or we have something going on, or I want to go get coffee with somebody, or that kind of thing. I would block off that time so that I didn't think I could get 4,000 things done that day, when realistically I only have 2 hours to do it.
Right.
And I think that's been helpful for you too, even though you don't structure it like I do. Well,
No,
you actually are up at 6, first of all.
I don't necessarily structure it like that, but knowing the hours that I do have, and then looking at the tasks that I have, I try to be realistic with the things that I'm capable of getting done in that time. Especially depending on what I'm doing or need to get done. It just knowing and being realistic with myself is just super helpful. And I think a lot of times we say in our house that if you ticked one thing off the box of your to-do list, or whatever list you like to call it, it's a good day.
Yes, and that's really hard for me.
Well, yeah.
Because I always.
You are an achiever. You want to get everything done.
I put way more than is physically, humanly possible to get done in a day. And I have learned a lot in this time with that, because I have realized I've got to put my expectations way down. And it's not that I'm not holding myself accountable and stuff like that, because
I don't think it's putting your expectations way down. I think it's just being realistic and just being like,
exactly. It's being realistic. And it's realizing that, again, because it's an unbalanced act, it's not about me having all of these things and being able to get them all done and things like that. And I've actually been sleeping better because I have been able to be more realistic with myself. It's not perfect every day. You can ask Pat, will tell you there's still days where I get frustrated because I didn't get done what I thought I would get done. But it's also made me realize I know generally how long it takes me to do things. However, like I was working on something the other day and I did schedule myself an hour to do it. It was like end of year taxes and pulling everything together. I thought, oh, it'll only take me an hour. And it took me the whole morning because there was things here and there I thought I had organized and I didn't, and information I thought I had together and I didn't, that type of thing. And so you just learn from those things. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It was something that absolutely had to be done. And I got it done, not in the time frame I hoped. But, that's just, and so it's just, again, being, that often happens. We laugh in our house. We love Jamie Oliver, like in his cooking and stuff, but he has cookbooks that he says 15-minute meals, 30-minute meals, that kind of thing. And so I, as the achiever, will go and see and grab those of like, sweet, I can get dinner made in 15 minutes. It has never taken 15 minutes.
No. We always joke about that.
I don't understand where he timed this, or if I was a professional chef, maybe it would be 15 minutes. I don't know. But
I think it's like 15 minutes after you prep everything. And
That's
it's
true.
like,
You have to have everything
like
pre-chopped.
everything's ready to go. The oven's already on and ready to go and all that. But yeah.
All those things. But it's it reminds me of how often, though, I do that where and sorry, Jamie, if you're listening, that'd be awesome. But sorry, it's not a diss to him. I'm sure some people can get it done in 15 minutes. But again, that's where you have to be. I could do certain things in a quick amount of time that would take Pat twice the amount of time, and then vice versa. And so it's just knowing.
Oh yeah. I mean, even like, even when we do cook or when I do dinner or whatever, and you're like, just follow the recipe, you'll be fine, all that stuff. It takes me, I probably realistically an extra hour than what Maya would actually traditionally do. So yeah.
Because he doesn't know my like ins and outs sometimes
Yeah.
on certain things.
Or your routine of how you do this or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just like,
yeah,
oh boy.
exactly. So again, you just are realistic and then how those days look and everything. So again, I think when you're looking at how do you get stuff done, how can you have this thing, again, the question we always get is, how do you balance it all out? How do you do family? How do you
Yep.
do a career? How do you do this? How do you do that? We don't do it all.
Yeah,
We say
you
no
can't.
to things.
You just can't.
And there's been seasons where, I've been able to help at the kids' school, and other seasons where I have not been able to do that. And I've had to say no. And there are just different things like that it's okay to say no. Like Pat said, you're allowing someone else to step into that then. And then something else will most likely either you'll continue on what you're continuing on, or something else might be opening up for you soon.
Yeah.
And that is really cool. And so I think
That
that's just
actually
something to
might
keep in
be
mind.
more in tune with you than the original thing that you had to say yes or no to. So
Exactly. And so I think, and I know for some of you, you might be trying to, I don't know, start doing I don't like people calling it a side hustle because I don't know, a side gig, a side job. I don't know what else to call it besides that, but you might be trying to start something on the side. Let's just call it
yeah.
that, which is what I
I
did.
always imagine like a motorcycle with a sidecar on the side when people say that.
Oh, I like that.
Of like, your main thing is the motorcycle,
You
but
might
you've
have a
got
full-time
this
job, but
you've got this other
yes.
thing sitting in the sidecar.
exactly.
I don't know.
That's
It's
I
just
I
funny.
actually like that, a sidecar thing. And with that, that's when I started the photography business and stuff. I had to literally look at, okay, I have a full-time job. We had a child under the age of 1, and we lived far. I mean, we didn't live that far away from where I worked, but it was an hour commute there,
Yeah.
an hour commute back. So my hours to do things were like very minimal. And so I had to be realistic. This is not going to just happen overnight. I'm not going to be able to build a business in a week.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So it did take time, and I was realistic on when I could do things. I worked on my lunch hour, for instance, on some things or on ideas and stuff. And
Yeah, and when you started to figure out those realistic things and were realistic with the things that you were achieving, it reoriented our priorities too.
it did, yes.
In that time of really going, okay, this really isn't a priority anymore, or whatever it is, it helped us continue to maneuver and figure out those glass balls at that time as well.
Exactly. So as you look at your schedule and your things and that kind of thing, it helps so much in understanding. It's, again, we will say always, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have times
Nope.
where we still utterly fail. I schedule too much. I think I'm going to get all these things done, then I'm disappointed, all that kind of stuff. But it really does lead to a life that feels more free, I guess is the right way. It's not that you may have all this free time, but you've allowed yourself to have freedom and having time to rest because you've said, we're resting during this time.
Yeah, this is a priority. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, again, looking at your weeks and thinking about figuring out what those priorities are, that's so key.
Yeah.
Figuring that out. And again, they're going to look different. It's taking note of those and taking...
You might have like a foundation of a couple priorities that will not change.
Exactly.
But there's other priorities that might come up from time to time in different seasons of your life that they're going to be there, and then they might not be there. So, but you might have a core, I would say.
There will be a time when we're not home learning anymore.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Please tell me there is.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Are we good at it? No.
No. not good at it one bit. But yes, so that's
so figuring out those priorities.
Exactly. So figuring out those priorities. And then once you understand those, that helps you figure out too, then those things that are coming up in your week, in your month, and that kind of thing is what's that
and
big
what you want
little
to say
index.
yes or no to.
Exactly. What are the big things you need to get done? And you can't have 20 things listed on your big thing. That's again, being realistic.
Yep.
Because I can tell you when I first got this journal that I referenced, I may have done that a couple times, and then obviously I realized that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So fitting some little things in, fitting some big things in. What is next? What is the thing that just cannot happen this week? It's not realistic. And then looking at when you work the best.
Yeah.
What is the time of day where you're just on it? Like whatever the thing is that you do, if it's your creative time or if it is the time, you might be somebody that's crunching numbers and doing things like that or coding or whatever it may be. My guess is you still have a sweet spot of time during the day for that
too.
too.
Everybody has a sweet spot when they're getting stuff done.
And so paying attention to that and knowing that. And I think sometimes when we try to force the sweet spot, like my early mornings,
yep,
it doesn't work for us because that's just not how we're wired.
Yep.
So however you can do that as well. And then if you want to, I would love to hear from you guys of testing out the block scheduling. If you have dabbled in it, if you,
Yeah, what do you even think about it?
Exactly. Has it been something that's worked for you? It really just helps me when those things come up and I think, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I'm going to put that on Wednesday because that's when I work on those type of things.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Or I get an email that has that subject line and I realize, oh, I'll take care of that on Wednesday or that kind of thing. Or
I think in some way, a lot of ways too, it's built consistency for us.
Yes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which has been super helpful.
Exactly. And so I think those are just, and then I know I went through my day and how I structure it, but you structure it differently. So it's not like that is something again but it's just.
In a lot of ways, you structure my day because of, our lists and the different things that we've put and how we figure out our priorities has helped me structure. So.
I'm in general more of the keeper of the calendar or diary of what is going on. And so that's again, us just communicating and keeping in touch with one another.
Well, and just understanding how we work well and what are our gifts that we bring to, the partnership in the business, in our marriage, in parenting, like all that kind of stuff. And understanding all that, it really helps.
Exactly. Yes. So it's not, I'm sorry if we've ever given you the illusion that we have this perfect balance between all of the things that we do.
Yeah, I hope we haven't ever done that.
Because that's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's not how our lives are set up. There's always something that is taking up maybe more time. Like Pat gave you the great example of when he was doing the book recently and everything. That was a lot of time. It was for a short season, thankfully.
Yeah.
But even our kids understood, Daddy has this big project right now. And sorry, but that's just how it is for this season. It won't last forever. If it starts to last forever, that's when you do pay attention. And those are big red sirens going off of, pay attention to this. We need to look at our priorities.
Yeah, I need to be aware of some of those rhythms that might have set into place that aren't good.
Exactly. But you have to be realistic.
Yep,
Have to be realistic. Have to realize it is an unbalanced act. Always. Different things are going to be into that. And it's just, when you can be more realistic, I think you let yourself down a lot less. You find more fun in the things you do as well. And you find, I hate to say it, but I keep going back to that word freedom. There's just a freedom and then not taking in your day and realizing, oh my goodness.
I think it's just always hard to look at your day and go and look at that list that you thought you were going to accomplish and go, I didn't even accomplish any of that stuff. And then that doubt and that frustration, and there's certain things that like really set in that you're just like, oh, maybe I can't do this, or the confidence, drops and like all that kind of stuff. But again, if you're understanding your priorities, if you're being realistic and what your day looks like, how you've structured your day, your schedule, all that kind of stuff sets you up to be in a really good place. And understanding all that stuff is just super helpful.
And don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
People are,
we've done it.
We do it.
For sure. We continue to do it.
We continue to do it. Often,
but it's a
some of the
constant
people
battle.
that you're looking at are steps ahead of you and whatever it is that you were trying to do. And you can't then say, oh gosh, they seem to be doing this, this, and this. First of all, they're probably not sharing everything that they're doing or that they're not doing. And they're also ahead of you. They may have somebody working for them. They may have, there are all these different things. They may have a nanny. They may have, I know one person that she has somebody that cooks her meals. That she has like a chef that then they bring in.
That'd be crazy.
That's their one splurge that she does is she doesn't cook, but they want to eat really healthy. And so someone cooks that and delivers all of their meals for the week.
That's great.
That would be awesome, but that's not realistic for us right now. No. And so, and so sometimes we have that perception again, like, oh my goodness, look at her. She's cooking all these fancy things and it's all healthy. And how does she have the time when she also does all these other things? She doesn't have the time. She's not doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that is just so important as you are thinking through all of these things. You got to figure out what's your priorities for you, for if you're in a relationship with your partner, with your family, with all of those things. What are your priorities? And then how do you make those things part of your daily life?
Mm-hmm. And be realistic about it.
Exactly. And adjust in seasons if you need and be okay. And throw out the B word, throw out the balance word.
No balance. It's unbalanced. It floats.
And it's okay. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.